Okay, Zion. Okay, the Mechaber, we're page 41. Okay, Hilchos Tzitzis 41, Halacha Zion. We just began this yesterday. Chutin Shulim Halvohi. Person borrows strings for tzitzis, it's considered a loan. Lo haju beinayu. But they're not going to be returned. Therefore, it's considered like his, and he could be yotzei the mitzvah with it. We discussed yesterday. You borrow a chair, even though in English you use the same word. I'm borrowing the chair. I'm borrowing money. You borrow the chair. You turn to the same chair. You borrow money, means you're going to repay, but you're not going to give back.
The same bill.
But even though it's same in Hebrew, it's a different word. Sheila is when the object is returned. Halvo, I want to borrow. I want to be loveh. There's loveh and there's lishol. Lishol is to borrow where the object is returned, the same object, and lilvos is to borrow where it's going to be replaced. I want to borrow a bag of sugar. Right? You can replace with something else. So it depends. So he borrows the strings for tzitzis. What does that mean when the person asks that? What it means is, I'm not going to return the same string, but rather it will be replaced. So if that's the case, when you borrow the string, it becomes your string. So if you put it into your corner, that's ksuscha. It's your garment, it's your strings, it's everything. There's no reason why not to say a bracha. And that's the mechaber. It's considered his string, because it wasn't taken to be returned. So here the Mishna Berura says, Chut Shulin, Pirush, Koloshin She'elo. Mashum Shiarzo Usadova Ba'ayin. Normally, the word She'ela, I don't know, be Shoel in Hebrew, it means you're going to return the item intact as you borrowed it. Avoloshin Halvo, but if you use a term, Halvo, in Hebrew, Lo Tzonit, it means it's to be expended, to be replaced. Ve'elu Chutim Shulim, but a person borrows strings, Mistoma, the presumption is it's not to be returned the same string. The karina bay mishlem. As a result of that, it's considered the borrower's string. So therefore, if he puts it on his four-cornered garment, he says the bracha. What about if the lender says to the borrower, I want those strings back. This is the only set of strings I have. I'm lending it to you, but I want the strings back. The lender said it clearly. So it's clear he's not transferring ownership to the borrower. Lo yivarech halayu. He's not permitted to say a bracha. It's what we speak about tal shula, right? I mean, it's a problem. No, because it's interesting. We say if you find a talis in the shul, even if the owner is not there, come upon a talis, you're permitted to take it, say a bracha. Because we say the owner is agreeable and even willing and happy that his object should be used for a mitzvah. So if somebody can use his tefillin or his talis, therefore it's not considered stealing. We could say with certainty the owner would be in agreement, be willing that the user should be able to use it. So I want to say the same with the strings. If a man's asking for strings, so he would want, so if that's the case, he definitely wants you to have it. At least it should be matana masla'achzeh. So he says, when this person's borrowing the strings, he's not saying, I'm borrowing the strings for tzitzis. He didn't say that. I'd like to borrow strings. So he says, therefore, the strings, the lender, in his mind, he's lending it for some other reason. Not for the mitzvah. Talis, tefillin, its value is what is mitzvah. Therefore, if the person wants to use it, we could say with certainty, he's in agreement. Whatever it takes that he should be able to be yotzei the mitzvah, he's agreeable to facilitate that, the owner. But strings which have multiple uses, and he doesn't say, I want to borrow it for tzitzis. Doesn't say that. So he may be borrowing for some other reason. So the mindset of the lender is not to give it to him. It's on loan. It's a loan that I want the strings back. So he never transferred ownership of the strings.
These strings had the kavanah from the
Wait. He's going to speak. We're speaking about strings.
Just regular strings.
He's borrowing the strings, which it's a single thread. It's not where they were twisted. No, because he says, if he gave him, let's say, the strings that they're already, it's 8-ply string, and you look at it, it looks like tzitzis, the string, even though they're not made yet, and it appears as our strings look like, unmade tzitzis, they're twisted and they're cut to size, the length of a normal string for tzitzis, mutter litlosem b'talis l'varach alayim. Then you're permitted concerning your talis, and why didn't he even say a bracha? Why? To provide in the son of matanim naslachzir, because he understands you're borrowing it to fulfill the mitzvah. So whatever it takes, he's giving it to you. So what does it take to fulfill the mitzvah? Matanim naslachzir. He's gifting it to you on the condition that you give it back. Mashikosav sivin yudal linyan talis. It's no different than finding a talis. You're permitted to use it without permission, coming upon a talis in shul. Right? Because we say the owner, since he understands you need it for the mitzvah, whatever it takes to be yotzei, he's agreeable to be involved in that level.
So what's the upshot here? That someone lends somebody strings.
Somebody says, I want to borrow a string.
Yeah.
So today,
String because you don't know what they're going to use it for.
because the lender doesn't know what he is, so therefore he may be using it for something else.
Correct.
Okay, to temporarily tie something. So that's the case. He's not giving it to him for keeps, right? He's giving it to him to use. So he's borrowing the string. You're borrowing the string, you don't return the string. He has no reason to have in mind that he's given to you to transfer even ownership. As a matarim, if I ask, can I borrow you lulav? The word lulav, what is the connotation of lulav? Lulav means an object of mitzvah.
Right.
So since to be fulfilled mitzvah, you must own it. So whatever it takes to fulfill the mitzvah, I'm agreeable, you should take it. That's matarim naslachzir. Talis is the same thing. The talis is a mitzvah object, and the only way you're able to fulfill the mitzvah, you must own it. So whatever it takes to own, he's agreeable that you should assume that level of ownership.
So when we borrow some tefillin or towels.
Tefillin, you don't have to own tefillin.
They don't.
But if you use it without permission, it's stealing. It would be mitzvah b'avera.
Right, but we assume that they want us to use it.
So therefore, you permit it to.
Why don't you have to own the tefillin?
Because it doesn't say it must be your tefillin. Here it says it must be your garment. It says ksuscha. It must be your garment. Tefillin doesn't say it must be your tefillin. Okay? See the
So the film is on the bench of a shul.
yeah.
You can't just assume. You can't just.
You could use those tefillin. You could assume.
You could assume,
You could assume.
even though you don't have to own it.
No, whatever. Ownership is irrelevant. Whatever you could assume regarding any mitzvah object, except we'll see later in Chal, except Svarim books. Because a book could tear easily to paper. There, the owner doesn't want you to use his sefer.
No.
This is at one time where printed material was very valuable, or manuscripts, and it was handwritten. That is something a person wouldn't want somebody else to use, unless he has explicit permission. But anything else where it's not that delicate, he's agreeable. And that one I would say, firstly over there you don't even know if it all belongs to one person. You wouldn't say it. Because again, it has to be something on a level that a person thinks about. Borrowing my tefillin is synonymous with fulfilling the mitzvah. A strap and a box and this and that, it has no right. It's not. Okay, Hamishtachve. Lebema. This is a Gemara. We had a Gemara in Avodah Zorah. Person bows to an animal. Worships an animal. A living animal. Samra posel tzitzis. Sheep. It has fleece. And now you want to use that fleece after the person bows to the sheep. You want to use that fleece to process into wool, into strings. Posel tzitzis. Hamishtachve lepishtin natua. What about if you have flax growing on a field and you bow to the stalks of flax? Kosher tzitzis. Sharei nishtano. Yeah, because it's been changed. We'll see what it means to be changed. We're not talking about Shina Kona. Not Shina Kona. Because Shina Kona is only a concept in stealing. It's not Kain Shagozal. It's not in the same state as he stole it because the alteration took place. Here we're talking about it's an object, it was worshipped. We'll see. Samro.
How's that different than a shera tree?
A shera tree is worse. A shera tree, it's planted for idolatry. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, here, it was planted for flax. Now you have stalks of flax, a person bows. The halacha is, if you bow to something which is mechub l'karka, it doesn't become an object of Avodah Zarah. More quotes a pasuk. More quotes a pasuk. It says, Elohim alahorim, the gods that are on the mountains. They know horim Elohim. What's on the mountain is the idolatry, but the mountain, if they should worship the mountain, that's not the god. That doesn't become the deity. It doesn't sue. But the Gemara says that's only for chulin. It's not affected to use for ordinary usage. But for mitzvah usage, even if it's mechubel l'karka, you're not permitted. Because that's what he's going to address that. The Gemara says if you bow to a bal chai, to an animal, a living creature, the animal afterwards is permitted for ordinary usage. But for mitzvah, which is much more sensitive, it cannot be used because it's tainted. It's like you find there's a halacha, esnan zona mechir kelev. Person who gives a prostitute, her payment is an animal. That animal cannot be used for a korban. But if you want to use it to serve it at your bar mitzvah, right, or at your 69th or 90th birthday, when you bar mitzvah for the first time in your life, you can serve it at that bar mitzvah, not a problem. It's kosher, 100% kosher. But for a mitzvah, to bring it as a korban, it can't be used. Mechir keleb. The Gemara says if, let's say, two brothers inherit their father, and in the estate there were 19 sheep and one dog. So one brother takes 9 sheep and the dog, the other takes 10 sheep. The 10 sheep which correspond to the dog, because you don't know which sheep the dog is corresponding, every sheep that the brother took 10, all those sheep cannot be used for a korban. That's called mechir kelev. It's an exchange for a dog. Make it barter. You take 2 sheep, I'll take your dog. Those sheep cannot be used for a korban.
The dog is so low.
Because the dog is so low. That's called mechir kelev. But if you want to use it for any other usage, not mitzvah, not korban, you can use it. Only specifically a dog. Dog, correct. That's something else. That's what you're giving the dog. It's not what you eat. It's going the other direction. Samro. So Rashi, the Mishna Berura says, after Dover had nevad eino osir el korban. It's a question. Something that you worship is only forbidden for a korban, avon lehejichori, but for ordinary usage, it's permitted. Because also the mitzvah tzitzis. Hoel the tzorchi gavohu, because it's to serve Hashem. That's not called ordinary. Mois klapi gavo. It's something which is it's repulsive regarding Hashem, something to be used for idolatry. Hovelu ishtani kol kach. Of course, it's in the same state. The change has been that. Dadayim chazusei olav nirshut semer. Fleece to a woolen thread, there's not much that of a difference. But a person bows to the stalks of flax. When you go from the flax seed, and now all of a sudden you have linen, there's no way to understand that one is a derivative of the other. Initially, it's a piece of wood. Now he took the strands and he wove them into threads. So because what it was initially is no longer recognizable or can be identified, it doesn't have that detestable representation. Okay? It's interesting. I had a case many years ago. Many people who are in the antique business, very often, it's stolen property. A lot of it's stolen property. Whatever. And that's the reason why you have to have, it's not only to authenticate that it's a legitimate antique, you have documentation, you have the documents that you're the rightful owner of the antique, which means something that has real value. So many years ago, this person came to me, he was all excited. He bought 2 silver pitchers that were about 200 years old. What was the shiloh? It wasn't a question, because it was stolen originally, and somebody had stolen it. The pitchers they used in the church for sacraments. Yeah. So originally these 2 pitchers had crucifixes on it. So they broke off the crucifixes, and he wants to use this as his wine bottle on the Shabbos table. Yeah. He's going to use this for his wine, right? To be able to keep it, he's permitted I don't know if he knew originally when he bought it, because it's Yishishini Rishus, and right there's despair. He didn't steal it. Maybe there's even shinoi because the picture was altered. It no longer it's in the same exact state as it was when he stole it. But to use it for a wine bottle on a Shabbos table, right? La locha, it's not a question because again the mitzvah is not the wine bottle on the table, right? It's making the kiddush. So just because the wine was stored there, it doesn't affect the wine. But nevertheless, I said it's totally. If you understand what Shabbos is, and you want to have any relevance to kedusha Shabbos, such a bottle the pitcher doesn't belong on your table. So I advised him if he could give it back or whatever, just get rid of it. He shouldn't be possession of it. You can't bring bracha such a thing if you're in possession of it. So it wasn't a halacha. Halacha, he was able to keep it or to sell it. Posul.
You're saying a bracha on something that was like an animal that we use for a avodah zarah, and you can eat the animal, right?
Wasn't slaughtered, it was bound. If it's slaughtered for idolatry, it's Yisrael, no, you're not permitted to benefit from it.
No,
This is
it was-
mishtachve. He bowed to a living animal.
Mishtachve.
And now he slaughters the animal
wants to eat
kosher,
it.
100%.
But he's going to make a bracha on that.
The bracha is not a mitzvah, because you're not permitted to benefit from eating unless you acknowledge Hashem.
Okay, so but isn't that still...
It's not a mitzvah. That's not a mitzvah. If you want to use that sheep for Korban Pesach, right? That you couldn't use it.
What about like kiddush and wine? If it was wine, you make kiddush in that wine.
Why he bowed to the wine,
You got to the vineyard or
to the
whatever.
barrel.
Would that be a problem?
No, it wouldn't be worse than.
Bracha.
No, it wouldn't be worse than the flax. You bow to the stalks of flax, and then you make it into thread, and there's no recognition between initially was you have grape, now you have wine. I told you once that my father, Shalom, during World War II, he was an officer in the United States Navy in Guantanamo Bay, and when he was there, half a day he would play polo, golf, and he had very little responsibility. He had a lot of time on his hands. So he went in Cuba. You could ask, what's his name? Person running for the office. Rubio. You could ask him. In Cuba, they have a lot of mahogany. So my father-in-law said, we could build a beautiful shul, mahogany or kodesh. So he commissioned some of these, whatever it was. They should build a mahogany bima or kodesh. And then they would have the Seder for Pesach. And they needed wine for the Seder for the Arba Kosas. So he didn't know very much. Even though he was a Shomer Shabbos Jew, but he never learned anything. So there was a monastery up on the hill. They used to produce wine, for their sacraments. So he had an unlimited amount of wine. Officer, American cook, orders a barrel of wine for the Seder. So that's the wine they used for the Seder. The wine that they made for the sacraments in the monastery. Real yayin esach. To be continued.